What's up, guys? I want to talk to you about um, an intriguing um, debate or situation, so to speak. Now, when you think of the 2000s, this for the 2000 era of basketball. Okay, when you think of that era, three guys come to mind that are the most best players that people will most likely say: Shaq, Tim Duncan, and Kobe Bryant. Now, believe it or not, all three of those guys have their careers connected to each other. Okay, you can't say Kobe without Shaq, Shaq without Kobe because their careers are too connected. Um, and Tim Duncan, he didn't play with those two guys, but he's an odd guy in. But he's always been the guy standing in both of those guys' way, from to either them making history and winning more championships, etc. I mean, both of those guys always been clashing with each other. You know, all three of those guys, so to speak, one way or the other. All right. So what I want to do is take the Shaq equation out, but you still have to probably throw him into this mix. Who was the best player of the 2000s? Not that, but who has the better legacy between those guys? Because when most people do their top five, you do have some people that add either Kobe in there or Tim Duncan. Now, I have never, in my years of watching basketball, I have never seen anyone put Shaq in their top five. You know, so Shaq always had a reputation or a narrative that he underachieved, right? So, for argument's sake, we're gonna leave Shaq out of this. But who has the better legacy, Kobe Bryant or Tim Duncan? All right. Now, this is such a trick question because you can make a case that most people say Tim Duncan is the greatest power forward of all time, right? Which I agree and think he is. So if he's the greatest number four of all time, he should be in the top five, right? I mean, basketball is a five-man position sport. You know, I don't do that when I'm ranking my top five. I don't do it by position. But if I was to do it by position, I would have Tim Duncan in here. Kobe wouldn't be in the top five if I'm doing it by position because, you know, Jordan's there. And if I'm doing my top five, me personally, I wouldn't pick Kobe in my top five. But when it comes to him and Tim Duncan, I do believe Kobe has the better legacy. And his name rings more bells than Tim Duncan. Tim Duncan may be the most forgotten superstar in NBA history. He may be on the same level with even a Kareem or Wilt Chamberlain because his name is just gonna get swept under the rug because he's a low key guy. All right, and there's some people out there that beg the question, you know, when did such and such player pass Tim Duncan? You know, because why we keep forgetting about Tim Duncan? Now, Tim Duncan does have two MVPs, regular season MVPs. Kobe don't. But as far for the better basketball player, now I would have to say Kobe to me because I think Kobe played at a higher level longer than Tim Duncan. But if you ask me this question out the gate, if it was like year 1999 and a couple of years in between there were seasons where Tim Duncan was a better basketball player than Kobe. This is why Kobe Bryant's ranking gets a little lower and you can have a little knock on it because Kobe's never been a clear-cut best player in basketball. It's always been Tim Duncan or Shaq standing in his way that you can make the argument for. Me personally, I think Kobe's been the best basketball player in basketball for probably 5 to 4 years, legit, without no question. You know, Tim Duncan, he did everything right in terms of basketball. Okay, he never choked. You never questioned if he came up small. These things have been said about Kobe. You know what I mean? He had moments when he came up short. You know, And Tim Duncan could have been undefeated in the finals. If he was undefeated in the finals, and let's say they beat it, the Miami Heat in 2013, then I would have to rank him above Kobe just in that standpoint. But the fact that they both have 5 championships, but Tim Duncan was more responsible for his championships than Kobe was. Kobe was responsible for 2 championships mainly, and that's the '09 and the '10. You know, the ones that he played with Shaq, it'd been a different story if they went back and forth winning Finals MVP, but that was clear cut Shaq's team. I mean, what way you look at it, it was still viewed, the narrative is this Shaq's team. I mean, there's nothing you could say or do about that. You know, so Kobe wasn't the number one for all of his championships, but you could say Tim Duncan was the number one for all 5 of those championships. You know, even though he didn't win Finals MVP, he clear cut was the man or the legit franchise player on all those teams. I mean, except for the one, of course, with Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi Leonard was young in his prime, and Tim Duncan was fading away. You know, but you can even make a case that Tim Duncan deserved to win Finals MVP, even in that one. You know, because he was the driving force behind that team winning. You know, Kawhi Leonard guarding LeBron, they gave him that Finals MVP because he guarded LeBron. That's the thing about giving away this Finals MVP. Just because you guard LeBron in the Finals doesn't necessarily mean you deserve a Finals MVP, but that's an argument for a different day. Now, Kobe's career is flamboyant. I mean, he played in L.A., he had a rap music career. He's more flashy. You know, he's a guy that a lot of people wanted to be and play like. He's more entertaining to watch. That does add in to your career as well. Tim Duncan was very plain Jane, back shot, bank shot going in. He was a master of the bank shot, you know. But his style was very boring. I said this numerous times. The San Antonio Spurs is one of the greatest teams in NBA history, but they're incredibly boring. You know, and the entertainment aspect does come into play. It's like Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao. A lot of people lean towards Pacquiao because he was more entertaining. Floyd was incredibly boring for a lot of people. You know, my wife would be the first one to tell you that. But that doesn't necessarily mean the other guy is better. He's just more entertaining. So, with that being said, who had the better legacy? Whose career was better? Even though Tim Duncan won more, he was 5-1 compared to Kobe being 5-2. Kobe had some moments when he came up small, you know, and he had some stats that not as impressive compared to Tim Duncan. I still rather have Kobe Bryant's career. I think it's a no-brainer. Kobe Bryant has the better legacy than Tim Duncan. But you can make a case about, if you're doing by position, you can make a case that Tim Duncan is an actual better player than Kobe Bryant. But I can't rank Tim Duncan over Kobe for the simple fact that his later years compared to Kobe's later years were different. See, I look at players' career all together. I don't look at the beginning to end. I don't look at the beginning and say, okay, that's it. You know, I look at your career from the beginning to the end, you know? And I don't hold a player guilty for or hold it against his career if he comes up short in certain moments, but then later redeems himself, you know? Because that's part of basketball. That's part of being human. So if you're going to knock everybody for their flaws, then you can't say a player even like Jordan is GOAT, because Jordan came up small sometimes. But the fact that when he started winning, he got it. He took off the ground running, and he learned how to win. You know, that you cannot knock. So I'm going with Kobe Bryant as better legacy than Tim Duncan. What do you got? Peace.